Meeting.
Oh, it says this meeting is being live streamed. And say, okay.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And welcome, welcome, welcome. We will also record this meeting just in case. Mhm. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Crystal Talk. We have moved. We have moved from Instagram to YouTube, and we welcome Alexander May from Los Angeles, California. He is our old friend, and he is one of the kindest people that I personally know, who has been around in the world of therapy and healing and just good advice for many years, and helped thousands of people to change their lives. And Mary Tarnowski. So here we are. And today we will be talking about envy, jealousy, and competitiveness. These
Mm.
are the topics that have been coming up lately, big time. And actually, it was Alexander's idea to start our Crystal Talk episode 1 with this very tricky subject. Why,
Mm.
Alexander? Could you explain, please, why are we talking about these very uncomfortable things?
Well, first off, thank you so much for inviting me today. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And the reason why this came up is that I was actually dealing with a couple of people for the past couple of months who were projecting competition, envy, and jealousy upon me, but trying to gaslight me into making me think that I was actually being that way towards them. And I actually started to believe it. And so, to make a very long story short, I had an episode where I had a nervous breakdown, and if it weren't for all of my very close friends, I wouldn't have been able to come back from it. And when I came back from it, I realized that all of the projections that were happening were being stored in my nervous system. And the competition and envy and jealousy that was being projected onto me, I was allowing it to come into my body because I was also allowing these people to make me think that I was being that way. And so since I came back from it, I have removed those people from my life, and other people have removed themselves without me even trying. So I thought it was very interesting that we should bring that up, and wanted to be vulnerable with our audience to let them know that I experienced it firsthand.
Wow, Alexander, this is very convenient. People have removed themselves like trash taking itself out. How does this happen? And
How does
why?
this happen? How does this happen? So when you are really generating in your life, right? And your body has an electromagnetic field, right? And so when you're generating energy, your star is rising, you're feeling good, you're working out, you're seeing clients, you're making music, or any whatever you're doing that's making you feel good. This creates a spiral of energy, right? And so some people will get sucked into the spiral, right? And those people, certain people will think that, oh, I need to mimic this person's energy to be able to be in this spiral, right? But then some people will think, oh, I hate this person and I want to manipulate this person. And then your energetic field literally flings them out. This is actual quantum physics. And so if they're not able to spiral with you and to upgrade with you, they will be flung out. Mm-hmm.
Hmm, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
how can we get comfortable with people flying out of our lives if we, for example, grew up in very tense situations where family members constantly expected us to take care of our feelings and emotions and actually take responsibility for what they feel.
Mm. So
Yeah, there is a connection
when
there, and actually, you beautifully put it like a couple of weeks ago. I remember we talked about dysfunctional families and how much people enjoy the feeling of competition,
um,
and being under pressure because it resurrects the beautiful atmosphere that they had at home back in the days.
mhm. So I think that's a really amazing question, and those are some very great points that you brought up, Mary. So a lot of people continue to reroute the memories that they had when they were children with their parents or with their family when they're adults, or their family with them as well, instead of seeing each other where they are as opposed to where they were. And so that keeps us in a loop at the same time as well. Um, and so when you're dealing with competition between you and your mother, or say your father, there is a lot of psychology revolving around this as well, which I think is very interesting, which I'm going to bounce back to you in a sec because you are really amazing with that as well. Um, I was perceiving a lot of competition between my family towards me. And what I wanted to do is I just wanted to get everyone to come together. But to get everyone to come together meant that I had to do certain things and to admit to being wrong for certain things that I did when I was 12 or 13 that I had already apologized for multiple times. And I am now 40 years old. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I would love to meet with you in person or meet over the phone and we'll connect in this way. But it cannot be conditional. Because if it has to be conditional to be able to move through those things, there's not a lot of choice involved there, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
Beautiful put, as always. There's not a lot of choice. Now,
Mhm.
do people have choice actually when they're in the competition mode? What do you think?
I don't believe so because when you are in competition mode, there's a constant back and forth type of energy going on, like this, and sort of like a tit for tat type of energy at the same time. And so you're kind of caught again in a different type of spiral, which is the loop, right? And so it's like, well, we love each other, but also we are competing with each other. And it's interesting because just to share with the audience, Mary and I have done an extensive amount of work with each other, working through subconscious, psychological belief systems of certain types. And something very interesting happened recently, and that had to do with my inner critic.
Yeah, would you like to talk about it? It's actually,
Yes, I really would. And then I would like to bounce back to you too. The the inner critic that I had was that I am loved if I am being criticized, because I observed my parents criticizing other people and criticizing me as a child. So in my head as a child, I thought, oh, well, that means that they love me. So if I start criticizing other people and criticizing myself, that means I am loved. And what happened was I started to develop a very bloated belly as a child, which was not normal. And my parents couldn't figure out what it was. They said, oh, maybe he's like eating too much or any of those things. But it's because I was so stressed out and there was so much cortisol being created that it was creating this little baby tire.
hmm.
Um,
Mm,
so
mhm.
Mary, I also wanted to ask you too, like, what about in your life? Like, where have you experienced this with friends or with colleagues or with family members when it comes to competition?
Well. First of all, every family where there are siblings,
Mm,
brothers, sisters, you name it, uh,
mm,
you have competition. It's
mm,
just given to you.
mhm,
The moment you're born, you are in a competition mode and you compete for your parents' love. There is no
mm,
way out of it.
mm,
Now, we can talk about it from many different perspectives. From the astrological perspective, we can say, hey, these specific positions of, for example, the luminaries can indicate
mm,
that you are um, either in a competition mode yourself or you're getting dragged into this wicked game that is called
mm, mm,
I personally experienced it firsthand because I have a little brother, or I mean, he is almost 2 years younger than me.
mm,
And yeah, we used to hate each other.
mm,
So later, I remember, I don't know, it's kind of an unexpected question, but I've noticed that, for example, for certain events or speaking events where I used to speak, for example, in Germany, or in Italy, I would drag along some female friends who would be just, what's the word? What's the right word? Like red with envy and jealousy around me. Uh,
mm,
and I would pick specifically the people that would not be accustomed to, for example, Milan Fashion Week or some speaking events. And then I've noticed that there is some kind of bonus. Oh, my dog is coming out frame. That there is some kind of bonus in this, well, you intentionally bring people in who would envy you. And this
mm,
is a very familiar feeling that you have
mhm,
experienced early on in childhood. And just like you said, you keep yourself in the loop, you keep experiencing or recreating the same situation again and again. And yes, the recent one, for example, let me think of the recent, well, due to our work and due to the fact that we work on ourselves constantly, I was able to recognize these situations
mm,
early enough to make sure that they do not happen again. And
mm,
also, we can work on our neural connections. We can work on our,
mhm.
this is where neuroscience comes into place, and actually stop getting high on competition. Now,
Oh,
yes, the question is, where can we get this dopamine that we were getting, from competition? Where can we get it? And that's, another chapter of our interview here, of our little get together. But
mm,
replacing competition with something that is actually creative is definitely the way to go. I think one of the reasons why we talk about competition in general is because we have the North Node, the lunar North Node in the sign of Aries.
mm,
And it's very often about competition.
mm,
Happen quickly. People compete for, I don't know, political parties. The way they do competition right now is quite fascinating. Now, if you've noticed, they start using very dirty tricks. Um,
mm,
because Aries is also ruled by Mars to a certain extent. We also see a lot of deaths, in the upper
mm,
echelon of power, like in Iran, for
mm,
example, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a lot of competition going on, and the question is how we do not fall the victim of the competition.
mm,
How do we maybe come out as a winner if we're still
mm,
in that game?
mhm. It's really interesting. that you brought all of this up because you were talking about getting high off of competition, which I thought was very, very interesting. So, am I to understand that certain emotions make people get high?
Absolutely. The mirror neurons in our brain, are wired um, a certain way. For example, if you're a little kid somewhere in Virginia, and you get criticized by your parents a lot, it will be very painful for you to perceive this criticism as the lack of love and the absence of love.
Mm,
You create the neural connections that communicate criticism, that they would decode the outer impulse, the criticism, into love, and they would give a certain shot of dopamine,
mm,
your body, just for you to feel good because you're in this
mm,
environment, you see it, you cannot imagine in your little world your parents are godlike figures. You cannot believe
mm,
they have malefic intent or that they're confused or that they're evil in some point, that they have their weak moments. You just perceive with your whole being that these are my parents and they mean good. So when they call me names or when they criticize me, they love me. And this is how connections are being created. So on the one hand, the nature is trying to protect us from shock and trauma. And on the other hand, if we grew up in, let's say, certain environments where patterns were not healthy, the way people
mm.
are communicating was not healthy, then we're doomed to get high off of negative emotions. And we're doomed to repeat these negative emotions again and again.
Wow. So, wow, thank you so much for offering that amazing reflection. So that would say that would mean that if you are getting high off of that, then you would also be chasing that high for most of your life until coming to the awareness that perhaps you are recreating this high with other people, perhaps even including female friends that you would have, or people who remind you of your parent. Is that correct?
Oh, you're asking very intriguing. We can really, we can really go deep on that one. For
Yeah.
example, females who did not go through full separation with their mothers,
Mm,
they tend to get into love triangles.
mm,
Not only females, men
mm,
as well.
mm,
And they start getting attracted to some man that they perceive as, valuable or sexy, or, that they possess certain qualities. But these not
mm,
the man that they want the mother.
mm.
They want to, let's say, exercise this revenge to, sorry, that's a little bit German, ausüben. They want to go after the mother, actually. And
Oh.
in the case of triangle, the mother figure is that other woman that is with
Mm,
the guy.
mm.
So that's a big topic. That's a big
Wow.
and there are some astrological, let's say, constellations that would point in the natal chart towards this tendency of creating triangulations.
Interesting. Can you
Mm.
go more into that, please?
Well, for example, we have Taurus and Libra, two signs
Mm,
governed by the planet Venus.
mm,
And Venus is responsible, if we look into the house system, the astrological house system governs the second and the seventh house. So it's the material goods that we have, that we possess in this world, on the one hand.
mm.
And on the other hand, our partners, who do we actually surround ourselves with?
Right.
And as you remember, the seventh house is not only about partnership, but also about open enemies and enemies in general.
Mm,
So a lot of people portray the planet Venus as the planet of love, which is far away from it. It's basically
mm,
the planet that dictates the way we make choices in our life.
mm,
And a lot of people with, let's say, moon or sun sign in Taurus or Libra, they have tendency of either ending up in a triangle, competition, love triangle, you name it,
mm,
or they create these situations themselves.
very interesting.
Mm.
I have a question for you.
I would
So,
say, sorry, I would even say more because there is one more, let's say, indicator of
mm,
being dragged into competition.
mm,
Luminaries in the sign of Sagittarius and Pisces.
mm,
And these people tend to be dragged into competition versus creating that competition around them.
mm, mhm. What is it exactly with Sagittarius and Pisces that they get dragged into? Is it because Pisces is so malleable? Is that why?
Yeah, well, if you look into the German school of astrology, they actually
Mhm,
separate the entire um, astrological chart, like the zodiac chart, into three
mm,
parts. And
mm,
they tend to say, and this is their theory, but
mm,
somehow it's been proven, throughout all of these years. I just hear
mm,
stories, I see the natal charts, I see people, I talk to people, and it's been proven that, let's say, people with a lot of planets in Aries and Taurus and Gemini, they're quite self-centered apart
interesting.
from many other things. They're self-centered. I would not say that necessarily they might have some narcissistic disorder, but they have
Mm,
they're prone to
mm,
getting this.
mm.
And signs like Pisces, Capricorn, Aquarius, Sagittarius, they're at the end of the zodiac, and they tend to not keep that light for themselves, but actually spread the light all around them.
Oh,
So they're far away from being self-centered. They're
interesting.
selfless, and therefore they might become easy prey for people who want to create uh, triangles. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I really love this this talk that's happening right now. So I have a question. I have a question for you also. So have there been any experiences in your life in terms, because we've been talking about family, so I want to take it over to business. Have there been any experiences in your life in terms of business where there were certain people in your life that were pushed out, that were not supposed to be there because of competition, envy, and jealousy?
And Alexander, I feel like this is personal therapy hour, but yeah, sure. Let me share. Um, Well, when back in the days before COVID, when I used to give lectures in Germany in German language, there were
Mm,
some men, not women, men who were stealing my content, who
mm,
actually would go on my German website, like download the program, present this program as their own, but you can't fake the vibration, so to say, right? And
mm, mm,
all of these attempts were doomed to end badly. But it was really making me upset. And I kept asking myself, why is this happening? Why man tried to compete with me? Like, oh, I've got nothing to do with this.
mm,
And only later I found out that it had a lot to do with my younger brother. We used to spend time together at my grandparents' house, and I would paint because I'm also a painter, as you know. Um, and he would get just crazy about me drawing well and him not. Like he was really into this competition thing. And his favorite technique of manipulation was, to run to my grandmother and actually complain about me. So I was scared of this open competition.
Mm,
And at some point, I've given up,
mm,
I said it's better I give my creations to my brother rather than I be punished for being creative
mm,
and open and out there.
mm,
Um, so this is the pattern that took off back in the days and flourished into serious competition on the stage of speakers and coaches and mentors back in the days in Frankfurt,
mm, mm.
etc.
Wow.
Took me a while
Wow.
to, to actually recognize this pattern and change it.
Wow. So you're an amazing public speaker. Do you have any public speaking events coming up soon?
Only in September.
Oh,
Only.
amazing. Well, that's coming up soon. Wow. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the other events that are going to start manifesting and popping up for you soon, Mary.
Yeah, I know that you
Um,
will be present at some very special event. Would you like to share with us what this is?
Oh, so I am a professional healer psychic medium, but I've also been developing a technique for the past 10 years called DVM, Dragon Vein Meditation, and it is an incredible multifaceted technique which is color therapy, energy clearing, guided meditation, which harmonizes you to the energy of this reality of the planet and also rebalances all of your hormones within the first 15 minutes of doing the technique. Um, and I'm doing the beginner certification course, which is starting on the 10th of June.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I am looking into some of the comments that we're getting from our first streaming event.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And mhm, yes. What do you think, Alexander, about antidepressants in general? Have you experimented with it? When were the moments where you were drawn to taking them? What do you
Mm-hmm.
just say?
So wow, that's an amazing question. Thank you for asking us. So I I'll just be very, very honest. Um, I was put on five different types of antidepressants when I was uh, a teen child. I was a child, a tween, like before 13, 12, and then on until I turned 18 years old. And then I decided to stop taking all of them and then detoxed off of everything. And had electrical shocks going through my chest for a month, which was really horrible. Um, and then I didn't touch anything until about 4 years ago. Was it 4 or 5 years ago? And my boyfriend died. And when my boyfriend died, all of the people that I had around me that I thought were my friends disappeared. Um, I was actually injured. I had been sexually assaulted and was bleeding out on my couch for 2 weeks, and contacted my very, very, very dear friend. Um, and she came over and brought me gabapentin, which is actually a not an antidepressant, but is given to people who do have depression or who have anxiety. And it brought me back. Like I was, excuse my language, but I was just like completely fucked, you know? And uh, was not in a good mental place and was like my nervous system, like my hands were shaking for like 24 hours. And that brought me back.
Mhm.
Um, and then I didn't touch it again for another couple of years up until I had the mental breakdown a couple of weeks ago. And
Mhm.
then I took it again, and then it brought me back, and it helped me a lot. So, my personal opinion with antidepressants or medications or things like that is that if it is necessary, take it. But for me personally, to habitually take it all the time, I don't believe I could, just because of my sensitivity level. I have no tolerance to anything whatsoever. So I just prefer to not take any kind of drugs or medications of any kind. However, what I have witnessed with a lot of people in the world with mental health and with things that other people are going through, if they need to take a sliver of something or they need to be on meds just to keep them level, I do not say no to that. So that's my personal opinion on it. What about you, Mary? How do you feel?
Well, I totally agree. And I actually, what you said, maybe it's a fad nowadays. It's like in fashion, be on some kind of medication, nonstop all the time. I think it's just dictated by, what is it, Saturn in the sign of Pisces right now, Neptune, especially Neptune in the sign of Pisces.
Oh,
We have a lot of new drugs that are being made legal, and only later we'll find out how harmful they are. Um,
mm,
and I think maybe if we are talking about the generation of people born after 2000 or right at the end of the 90s, maybe they even kind of brag about the fact that they're on some kind of medication. Don't you think it's a trend right now, especially in the US?
so it's really interesting that you said this, and I've been wanting to talk about this for a very long time. So I'm super excited to have this discussion with you and for our audience. I believe, and this is just my point of view, that we are over therapizing each other. I believe that a lot of younger people are constantly talking about anxiety and talking about gaslighting and talking about all of these things without actually ever truly experiencing it. And what I mean by that is I mean by the internet and social media constantly projecting onto people like mental health is important. But it's like, yes, mental health is important, but are you authentically actually aware of what is going on with you? Or are you taking on the projections of other people from social media and other, outside energies telling you what you should be experiencing in your own body and in your mental health journey?
Wow, absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely true. And
Yeah.
also the terminology that people are using nowadays without having read any any of the books, that are required, uh,
Hmm.
you know, um, in college for psychologists or universities. Just playing around, flashing the terms such as bipolar and narcissistic disorder without having
Hmm.
a clue what this actually means. Some people,
Hmm.
oh, I'm bipolar. Do you even know what manic depressive psychosis actually mean? Do you even know how people feel when they truly have this condition? They
Hmm.
actually, it's very dangerous. They're on during their manic phases, they're very sexual and they want to conquer the world. During the depressive phases, they might kill themselves. all kinds of things, and it's very extreme. And the chemistry that's happening in the brain and what's happening in the body is difficult not only to experience, but also to explain to the outside world. So a lot of people are just walking around with made up, not titles, but yeah, they carry them
Mm,
as titles, as medals, invisible
mm,
medals of
mm,
invisible diseases, mental disorders that they never had.
mm,
And how can you diagnose, let's say, a bipolar if you're not a psychotherapist, right? Like
right.
this,
Yes.
this is a very interesting trend, actually.
Mhm,
And as far as the competition right now, kids are competing in terms of like what medication they're on. Um,
mm,
like this victimhood mentality in a way is flourishing right now. Mm,
mm,
in terms of uh also the whole transgender story, but we're not going to touch it right now. Maybe that's for another episode. But this wishy-washy kind of state where I am bipolar, which is kind of hip, where I am one day man, one day woman, another day magic wolf.
mm,
No.
mhm,
Um, it is fashionable. Why? Because
mhm,
Neptune, the planet, the collective planet that governs fashion in a way, dictates the things that we're attracted to, is
mm,
in kind of Pisces. And
mhm,
unfortunately, these people will come to a rude awakening very soon from 2025 on. When all of these things all of a sudden will just go out of fashion very quickly from one day to another.
mhm.
No one will
You know,
pity another person for, being depressed or for taking some kind of medications.
mm,
Will be admired is the strength, the resilience, the assertiveness that one has, and
mm.
the medication would matter.
So it's interesting that you brought that up because, I'm kind of circling back around to what we talked about earlier because it's resonating with the current topic we're talking about. So we were talking about uh, getting high off of emotional intensities, right? And how that transitions into adulthood. So what I am correlating to this is that because people are on the internet and they're getting high off of stimulation. So the stimulation of the dopamine hit, which people also are like, like talking about on the internet all the time, dopamine. But there is some truth to that where they're searching for the next hit, right? And so the interesting thing about emotions and our phone, right? Our phone has bits of quartz crystal inside of it, and it emits an electromagnetic frequency that mimics our aura. So every time we go like this and we scroll, the phone starts spiraling energy towards our face and starts blasting our field. And what the phone is doing is the phone is trying to understand what we are looking at and what we are doing, and it's reflecting it back to us. So not only are we getting high off of stimulation, we're also getting high off of getting in the spiral. So it's very interesting to me. I'm actually in this moment right now. I'm having this huge awareness on how I should probably like not be on my phone more. Like I should probably have like days off where I don't look at my phone because now things are starting to make sense in my brain. And
Right.
also,
Mhm.
hmm?
Right, absolutely. And you have worked with patients who are constantly on their phone, right? Because
Yes.
they don't take drugs, but their only drug is, I don't know, Instagram, right? And they're
Well,
constantly
yes.
watching some cute puppy videos or cat videos.
Yes. Well,
What do
also,
you witness actually? How does it look like when you scan these people, when you actually work with them?
Well, it's really interesting that you bring that up, and thank you for noticing that. Is that I work predominantly with a lot of baby psychic mediums, or people who are intermediate psychic mediums, or people who are advanced. And what I mean by psychic medium, which that's like an umbrella, is those people are channels, which means they can tap into energy very, very, very quickly. And so, because those people are tapping into other energies very quickly, it's very easy for them to get lost. And that includes people, places, and institutions. So an institution could be a church, it could be a spiritual uh, thing, it could be a like Walmart, it could be Chanel, it could be anything that has a label on it of some kind that makes you feel seen, makes you feel wanted, makes you feel good, any of those things. Politicians, like Instagram models. And so a lot of these people will look at these things and think that they need that for their own life. But what they're not doing is sitting down and asking their body, like, body, what do you want to experience today? What do you want to choose today? You know? And so it's really interesting, Mary, because a lot of these sessions that I do with people, it just basically removes, and I help them empower themselves to remove all of that programming. And then they're like, well, I don't even know like if I ever even liked that in the first place. um,
Mm. Well, first of all, I love how you casually put Chanel and Walmart into one sentence. I find this amazing. And thank you very much for bringing me back on track with the competition topic. Um, the question is, now you brought up a very important point, our body, right? The
yes,
conversation with our body. Uh,
yes.
mm, Now, Alexander, what do you think how our body feels and how it reacts to people who envy us and who are jealous,
Um,
because of something? Are there any signs that we can
yes,
tips to our
yes,
that we can give our audience, like how our body feels around this
yes.
envious
I
and
have I know exactly how to what yeah. Wow, that really brought I apologize for interrupting. That really brought up a very visceral reaction in me when you asked me. so that means that yeah, that means this is gonna be really great. Also I love Chanel. Okay. So if I am around someone or a group of people and I am constantly feeling frustrated and feeling this, like if I experience pleasure from celebrating something, like for example, if I told someone that I have this amazing documentarian that wants to do a music video for me, and this person is supposedly one of my best friends, and they look at me and they don't respond and they just stare at me, and then I start to feel this sort of like closing up. At first I'll go, oh, no, it's no big deal, you know. But if it continues to happen over and over, not only is it obvious, but the physical body reacts in a way where everything gets tight, everything feels almost like electric to the point of where it's like doesn't feel good, like you're getting shocked by something. And that is because you are experiencing the projection of the competition and envy and jealousy of that person. And instead of them celebrating you, they're not. And then a lot of people in their mind will just say things like, and this is pretty normal, Mary, will say things like, we have years of history, or this person helped me through a very tough time, or this person has done this for me or that for me. But it's like, just because people do things for you or do actions for you does not mean that the underlying behavior is always going to be supportive. See what I mean?
Can you bring an example? Can you
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
give us an example?
So yeah, so I did an amazing photo shoot. I do amazing photo shoots with my friend Megan Gallagher. And we were doing this amazing photo shoot. And I was feeling really down that day. I just was not feeling well. And she said, "Hey, let's go take cute photos of you." And I said, "Okay, let's do it." And so I put on this outfit and my friend Venus has taught me about like color spectrum with like the color wheel, and it was this like purple, green, gorgeous outfit with like a Prada necklace that one of my friends gave me on my birthday, and I was just feeling good, girl. And like Megan was like, "You look amazing," right? We go and do the photo shoot. Photo shoot literally is only like 15 minutes. Gorgeous, love it. I show my photos from the photo shoot to one of my best friends, and I was like, "Oh my God, I look so beautiful in these photos." And then they go, "Well, yeah, you are." Like that. And at first I was like, "Oh, well, maybe, I
Mhm.
don't know." And then it just kept happening where I would celebrate myself, and then the person would go, "Yeah," like that, or "Yeah, you are." Like in this very strange energy. And that's what it feels like. It's like if they're not like, "Woo, I'm so happy for you." I mean, it's not like that person is having a bad day. It's happened multiple times. And you're kind of like choosing not to observe it because it's the truth. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people are afraid of the reality and the truth of their relationships with other people. I truly think so.
Oh my gosh, man, you're so right. Afraid of the reality. And right, what a great example. It must be very hurtful because you look at these people probably at that moment where they give you this dirty look, and they say that you're amazing, and at the same time you can almost touch their envy or jealousy.
Mm,
And you probably think at that point, what can I do? Now it's, let's say, like a coat that has become small and I cannot wear it anymore, right? So it's an
mm,
item, for example, let's compare it to a clothing item, and it's kind of yours. You've been having it around for a long time. You wore it a few
mhm,
times, but now you don't really know what to do with it. So
mhm.
how do you deal with these people where you constantly recognize, okay, he or she is on that competition trip? What do you do afterwards?
So there are certain people that I feel I'll tell you what happened with me. I started to realize that I can't have people like that in my life where there is a huge undercurrent of competition, envy, and jealousy, even if I've brought it up to them multiple times and there's so much pushback with it.
Mhm.
Um, I realized that I just have to cut them out. And I think that's the hardest part because a lot of people, we have history, or again, like this is the brain, the mental, like the lizard brain, like, "Oh, we know each other, we've shared memories together," all of these things. But if there is this constant energy happening, and in my case it was just being projected onto me all of the time, you have to rip the cord. You have to let that person go. And ever since I did it, I've never felt better. And so that doesn't mean that you don't love that person or that they didn't love you. But again, we have to face the facts. There is the fluffy, shallow, base level stuff on top. And then there is the reality that is undercurrents. And if you hang out with someone multiple times, you live with that person, it's a family member, and you have constant interactions with this person where it just does not feel good, then it's time for them to go, or you need space for yourself. And you need to be able to do this unapologetically. Otherwise, you are still pandering to the behavior. And that is also a reflection of you as well. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, if you're still getting high on that very dopamine of competition, it's time to change it, because this is actually what keeps you keeping those people around, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So to sum it up, our body, you described it brilliantly. Our body reacts to people who have, let's say, a malefic intent, or at that moment are not happy for us. It actually affects our body. And you said that the
Mm-hmm.
closing up, that the body kind of closes up, is trying to protect itself, that there electric tight feeling. What else? What are other, uh, let's say, hints that we can get from our body, that this person is envious or in a competition mode?
Usually a feeling of I can feel heavy, or I feel like I want to throw up. That also, and also because that pertains to the solar plexus,
Mhm.
right? And so the solar plexus is the power center. And so that is anywhere and everywhere we have been empowered or disempowered, or have empowered someone else or disempowered someone else, because it goes both ways, right? And because I have the body awareness because of what happened to me when I was a child, right, with my stomach,
Mhm.
I can perceive it very quickly. Yeah.
Now, I know we're supposed to keep our first crystal talk to an hour, down to just 1 hour. Um, maybe I don't want to let you go. Maybe we should talk about few more things that would be useful for our audience,
Sure.
in terms of this envy, jealousy, and competition. Because
Sure.
people I know, they use these disturbing feelings and emotions as driving force, right? So they try to, I don't know, mimic the success, or mimic certain behaviors and things. And what does it do energetically to the one whose behaviors and success has been copy pasted?
What does it do? What does it do to the person who's been mimicked? Is that what
Yes.
you said? So, okay, this is an amazing topic. And I would be so joyously inclined to extend the time for sure, especially about this topic, with Mary Ternovsky. Um, so, in terms of mimicking, would also say parasitic relationships, which it can become. Um, their business will flourish. They will make more money. Your money streams will close down. You will stop making money. And they will also project onto you, like, why aren't you doing well? Like, whatever, da, 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 da. And people who mimic you, also, this is the other thing, people who mimic you, but don't give you gratitude for what you were able to give to them essentially, they'll make it very obvious to you. And what I mean by that is, if they are siphoning off of your life force and are basically mimicking the way that you speak to people, or absorbing your energy, they go from being grateful to being completely ungrateful, and they won't even acknowledge you to other people. And that it's a very, very, uh, again, I think it's important to point this out, that all of these things are very obvious, and it will be shown in a very obvious way to you. But our brain, for whatever reason, and we've stated the reasons, will go into trying to defend that person and their crappy behavior. And so, uh, one of the best ways to be able to deal with someone who is mimicking you, this is really funny.
Yes.
One of the best ways to be able to deal with someone who is mimicking you is you can actually ask them a question. Mhm. And so Mary and I love to ask questions. Mhm.
Yes.
And
We
one
do.
of the easiest, one of the easiest ways to ask a person who is parasitic or a mimic is to say, truth, are you being in your own energy right now? And if they say no, if they say no, or if they hesitate and look at you like you're crazy, there's your answer. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes. And then you end up alone without any friends somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Boo. Yeah.
No, that's I'm just joking. Um, well, actually, um, there's one more thing to mention about this energy of competitiveness.
Mm,
And I just kind of lost the train of thoughts here. It has a lot to do. It has an effect on person's financial success. Absolutely. Uh,
mhm,
you're absolutely right. And this is the point that a lot of people do not bring up. Uh, from my personal experience, I have noticed a lot of, let's say, through my psychoanalytic practice, I have noticed that people who have this tendency of surrounding themselves with competitors had parents, very often had narcissistic parents.
mm,
Narcissists usually always compare themselves to each and every object in their life, and very often,
mm,
very unfortunate, to their children.
mm,
When we talk about, let's say, narcissistic mothers and their child is growing up, serving a constant reminder of the welting phase of the narcissist,
mm,
of the fact that this narcissist is aging. Um, it brings one into a certain competition mode.
mm, mhm,
Without actually, and children don't want this, but
mhm,
there might be cases where parents intentionally or unconsciously bring their children into this competition. They basically drag them into this mode of being constantly alert and enjoying the competition and suffering from it at the same time. And these are the type of people, they're very difficult to work with um,
mm,
because of the transference, counter transference. They might project onto a therapist this competition, and they might
mm,
start competing with the therapist. They might start competing with random people, just basically wasting time, wasting their
mm,
time.
mm,
Yes, and maybe we should highlight at the end, to just kind of round it up, highlight the benefits of not being in a competition, of not responding to the outside world who wants to drag us into a competition. What are
mm.
How does it feel to be free? How does it feel, Alexander? Would you like to share how does it feel to just snap out of this competition and just to say goodbye to people who want
Uh,
to, um, copy paste whatever you have created?
Copy and paste. Oh my God. Wow. I would say that I have so much peace in my body. I've been sleeping better. I wasn't sleeping at all before. I was sleeping maybe 1 or 4 hours a night. Um, I feel loved, I feel supported. I feel like I'm able to create without feeling like I have to see results. So I'm not involved in the result anymore. I'm just involved of the creation aspect of it. I look younger. I feel better. Um, it's I can't help but say this because you're just touching upon so many relevant subjects to my life, and you don't even know, or you do know, which is so interesting. You must be like aware or something. Um, but the aging projection is very interesting because I'm 40 and I've always looked very good and looked very young. And I always think it's interesting whenever someone asks me a question of, well, when are you going to get old? Very fascinating. When I first heard that question, I was very confused by that because it was like, well, I mean, I'm taking care of myself. So, and also, you know, we're not going into it in this YouTube live. We'll go into it in some other ones in the future. But when it comes to beauty and when it comes to energy, the topic of and the principles of regeneration of the body inside and outside is not only a science, it's a way of life, Mary, right? And Mary should know because Mary is gorgeous, so she understands also.
Well, let's talk about the mode that some people get into when they feel this energy of envy and jealousy, and instead of responding to it, instead of
Mm,
protecting themselves, they
mm,
tend to hurt themselves. For example, they start having accidents, or some people acquire
yeah.
diseases, that
Mhm,
get diagnosed only later in life.
mhm.
And this is because they were, um, once again, the German word comes to mind, but I'll try to speak English, download English. uh, they were putting up with this, with the behavior and with these people. They kept these people around, and it definitely has an effect on our physical body.
Mm.
Now, what is the mechanism, Alexander, that ignites this desire to hurt oneself instead of actually lashing out and saying no to those envious fucks?
That's That's an amazing question, actually, because I've personally gone through that. So
Mhm.
I used to burn my wrist whenever I I had a friend at one point a couple of years ago who would yeah, I'll just say it. I had a friend a couple of years ago who would try to I'd never experienced gaslighting before until I met this person, or I didn't even know like what it was, um, or was aware of what it was. And whenever we would plan to meet up with each other, 5 or 2 minutes before I would arrive at this person's house, they would say things like, it's not always about you. I want to hang out with my parents, or it's not always about you. Da, 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 da. And this person at one time said, oh, if you ever need anything, just call me and you can come and stay at my place with me and my parents. And I,
Mhm.
like, not even consciously aware of it, whenever this experience started happening with this person, instead of me being like, well, I don't need to hang out with you because you're being rude or you're being weird, I started burning my wrist on the stove. And prior to that, I was not a self-harmer. Uh, and I
Hmm.
think the third or fourth time of like of subconsciously burning my hand on the stove, I called one of my mentors and I said, "Hey, this has been happening." And she said, "Oh, you're dealing with a narcissist. And so you need to stop talking to this person." And
Mhm.
so I think personally, the reason why I was doing it was because truthfully, I am not a person that is of malintent towards other people. I don't like doing things to people. I don't like yelling at people. I don't like getting into like ways of making people feel bad about themselves. But if I get pushed to the limit, um, instead of blowing up, I will internalize it. And so I think that that's like what happens is you internalize the energy so much that the
Mm.
only way that you can get it out is by feeling something very intensely, or some people do it by doing drugs or drinking or sex or food, to not take a look at the experience that is happening. And so we will use certain stimulations to avoid what is happening. And self-harm to me was a version of stimulation, which it's so wild that we're having this conversation, Mary, because the audience, like, just to be really vulnerable with our audience, like a lot of these amazing topics that we have that are coming up, we didn't even like discuss it. So it's very interesting that this is all like coming up right now. I'm like, interesting. What about you, Mary?
Alexander and I have Mercury in its exile, and we're very bad at planning. So we actually do not prepare anything before our crystal talk sessions. We're just, you know, we're just out there sharing our vast experience. Uh,
Yeah.
I believe that inner aggression that is turned towards oneself has a lot to do with the anal type of character. When we turn to classical psychoanalysis, and
Mm,
during the anal phase, as Sigmund Freud was describing it, kids learn to manipulate the parents by withholding, um, how would I put it, excrements, feces, I don't know what's the right word, but with withholding it, and through that withholding, manipulating the outside world, because actually
wow.
excrements is the first thing that comes out of one's body, right? It's the first creation, so to say. It's a very
Mm,
topic, and also around this evolves the subject of how we govern our energy and how we manage it, and whether
mm,
we actually do something about the energy that we have inside, or we turn it within us towards ourselves and
mm,
use it in a negative way. I really liked what you said, Alexander, about getting real and actually being in this reality. And a lot of topics I know that our audience, the people that have been following us throughout all this time on Instagram, they benefited a lot from very down to earth tips, advices that you have given
great.
throughout all of this time. And I would leave it at that today and just reinstate what you said earlier. Let's get real because it's
Mm,
necessary. Whoever is on heavy medication right now, time to get real and time to start gently getting yourself out of it. Whoever has surrounded himself herself with envious friends, it's time to snap out of it as well and
mm,
just simply stop enjoying this environment. It is time to get real.
mm-hmm.
Using
Yep.
your side.
Mm-hmm. I would just like to thank everyone that joined our YouTube live today, and just to let everyone know that if you are feeling like the time right now is really intense and you feel like life is intense, just remember that air is free, the grass is free, being here is free. Go put your feet on the grass and ground yourself. Go hug a tree. Really start to understand that this reality is not against you. This reality loves you. The planet loves you. Do not be confused and do not be um, swayed into anti consciousness. Love you.
All right. Have a great evening or afternoon, or have a great day, everyone, wherever you
Bye.
see you soon.